This is a Martin D-45 1942 authentic. One of about 32, I think 32 that were made. And you might be surprised to know that the neck is not glued on. It is stuck in here with a press fit dovetail. There is not a bit of glue in this neck right now. And if you watch this video, you'll see why that is so and why I'm doing this. So, I'll have all this in the comments, but I understand that you can't see the comments when you're on your TV, and a lot of people don't see comments when they're on their phone and that kind of thing. So I want to get this out front so that I make sure that you hear this and see this. And this is a very long, detailed video of an advanced neck reset technique that I have used. I learned this technique from Jim Baggett and Mass Street Music. And I also learned it from the late Jim Granger, who was at Custom Fret in Sparta, Tennessee. I have learned a lot of nuggets from those guys over the years. And this is a technique that both of them use. And I applied it to this guitar because you'll see as you watch this video why I'm doing this. And so I just wanted to get that out front, make sure I got everything on here. I also do a lot of this in real time with minimal editing, so that if you are serious about learning stuff about this, you can see how long it takes. You can see what my thought process is while I'm doing this, and the things that I'm balancing here, because repairing something of this caliber with the issues that it had is not a cookie cutter process, especially not for me. There's things to consider. There's things to consider. There's things to consider. There's pros and cons, and the wheels are spinning in my head. And I'm telling you what I am thinking. If you want a short, concise soundbite video, this is not it. Just hit the stop button right now and go away. For the rest of you guys, watch the video, watch it a couple times if you want. Watch it over a couple of days. I don't care. There's a lot of information in here, and maybe you'll use this technique someday for this purpose. And so I think it's kind of fun that this neck's not even glued on, and here we are playing it. All right, here we go. Well, hello. It's taken me a year and a half to make this video. And what I'm doing is a neck reset on a D-45 1942 authentic. There are 32 of these guitars made. 32. And I got this in, customer actually lent it to me. He lent me this and the 36 authentic D-45 that's been in a couple of videos. And I looked at this one and I said, man, it needs a really mild neck reset. Doesn't need much. But the action was like 110 or something like that. It was just too high. And I said, if I can do a very mild neck reset on this right now, we can keep the original saddle and not have to modify it or anything. So we'll have the original saddle on there. And we all agreed on that. So I went to it and I was taking the neck off. And I do this the way I've done 600 necks. I've done 600 neck resets, including other D-45s. But what I didn't realize about the authentic is that the binding is celluloid. And if you know anything about celluloid, you know that it is extremely flammable. So let's pause here while you think about this. I did not know it was celluloid. So I'm using my heat lamp, which I use for, you gotta heat it, you gotta heat the extension here to get it loose. And I went ahead and I put aluminum foil over the inlays here so that they wouldn't get hot and bubble up. And I put extra foil over the binding so the binding wouldn't get loose or anything like that. I mean, I was really going careful on this thing. And I checked it, everything looked great, and just a little bit more heat. Put the heat lamp back on there, and it went poof. And I smelt it, the burning celluloid. Oh no. Oh no, I was scared to look. And I looked. And what happened, it burnt the binding right here, about an inch or so of it. I'll see if I still have a picture. I'll throw it on here. And what happened was that the fret, this is how flammable celluloid is. The fret, and I've done celluloid before on mandolins, because I've smelt it when I was, doing some fret work. You could smell that characteristic mothball smell. So I have done celluloid binding before. I don't know what I would have done a lot different, except chuck it. Yeah, I don't know. You don't know. You didn't have any warning. But what happened was the fret got hot, and the heat of that little bitty bit right there on the binding, boom, blew up the binding. Oh my gosh. I was sick. Sure. The year that this happened was a really bad year for me. It was It was 1923. Yeah, 1923. It was 2023, and I was just having an awful year with a lot of things. Okay, so I just couldn't bear the thought of it. So I talked to John Arnold, and John has worked on more pre-war D-45s than anybody else in the world. And I said, man, you got to bail me out of this thing. So he agreed to help me. And what we agreed to do is just replace all the binding. Just completely replace the entire binding. And I'm not sure if he did it on both sides or just one. It took about a year. It took over a year for the repair. And man, I did not rush him. Believe me. But I did want to get this guitar done. So anyway, I got it back the other day. And so we're going to put the neck back on this thing. And I am scared. No, I'm not scared. I'm just being super cautious here. And which you should be. So let me tell you, watch out for the celluloid binding. I had no idea. First of all, that the originals used celluloid. I should have thought of it, But like I said, 23 was a bad year. I should have thought of it. And I didn't think that little bit right there was going to cause any issues because I had it mashed off, so it wasn't getting hot at all. But what a mess. So we're getting ready to put the neck back on this thing. Whew, finally. And, one of 32 here is just like, holy cow. So here's a couple of pictures of it so you can see it. This is probably the only D-45 42 authentic you're going to ever see the insides of. And, it's not quite totally authentic. I mean, it's pretty good, It's pretty good. But when you get things like this, the little holes here where they're used to hold the neck down and the jigs and things. This brass piece right here, which you could take off, but John's taken some of these out and filled them with dowel. And I don't want to do that, because this is the way the guitar came, so we're going to keep it as original as we can right now. But you can see it has an ebony truss rod in it. And first thing John did was email me and said, I don't know what Martin was thinking here, because this is about half the size of the original. The original is this length right here, but twice as wide. And you got to look at this and you think, man, I hope that's enough support for this neck, because there's no metal. There's no T-bar in here. It's an ebony truss rod. So, you got to hope that's going to be enough support. I would recommend this guitar have light gauge strings. The 42 authentics are specified with a thin top. And I have a magic probe where I can measure the top thickness. And the average thickness of this top is about 92 thousandths of an inch. Whereas my 41 authentic, my D-28 41 I think, is 120 thousandths of an inch. So this is 30 thousandths of an inch thinner top. Fully scalped, small bridge plate. I'm going to stick the camera inside. We'll take a look at the inside of it, since, like I said, this is the only opportunity you're ever going to have to see this. I would run light gauge strings on this thing. I'm normally a medium gauge guy, but just for I don't want to ever take this neck off again. So we're going to put this neck back on. And I put it back in the jig already and kind of took a look at it, and it's not going to take much. I mean, I remember I found my original spec sheet somewhere, but it was like 0.010 of an inch off the heel, which was just not very much. But I really wanted it to be perfect, and I didn't want to mess with the original saddle. I said, you know, if we can reset this neck to this, we'll leave the original saddle, and at least we'll have that, you know. So it's not going to take much, but it's just a little bit off to be perfect. So I have started already, and then I decided to go ahead and videotape it. It's got blue tape on here, and I stuck this tape because this is a thin finish, and my gosh, you know, I am moving cautiously on this. In fact, I'm probably going to put it back in the case for a while, but in order to reduce, so I can go think about this a little bit, in order to reduce the tack, you stick it on your sweatshirt, your t-shirt, and I stuck it on here 4 or 5 times. Normally I do once, you know, reduce the tack. Man, I stuck it on there till I had like no tack. And when I take that tape off of there, I am going to do so carefully. It might take me 4 hours to get that tape off. Seriously, I'm scared. So, I got that tape. Almost no tack on it. To protect it, as I use the sanding strips. I stuck it in my jig over here and I measured it. And we'll go over there and we'll take a look at that. I'll show you how I do this. I've got tons of videos on how I calibrate a neck reset. But we'll look at this guitar specifically, since it is a 42 authentic. And here's the top of it. And you can see they've got it written on there. And again, you have these holes here, which the real authentics didn't have. But you know, Martin's, it's a replica. You know, it's a very good replica, pretty good replica. I mean, they messed up on the truss rod, but so here's what it looks like. You can see all that. There's nothing really hard about D-45s. They tend to stay together really good. You know, right here, as long as you don't use just tons of heat and tons of steam. The pieces right here will generally stay together pretty good. I've never really had any issues with those coming apart. You've got this black right here, which is your margin where the neck sits in there. They're not that scary, except for this one, you know, which is why I was just totally devastated when we had an issue with it. So I'm going to shut the camera off a second. I'm going to go set this over in the jig, and we'll take a look at it over there. All right, we're over at my neck reset jig. I've got videos on this, but basically this is what it is. It's got a block right here. This holds the heel. You'll see it in action here in just a second. We're going to stick this D-45 in here, and I'm going to show you the most critical measurement for me on the neck reset. So, moving very carefully here. Got to put this body, put the neck on the body. Goes in there. This goes on this padded clamp up here in case you haven't ever seen this before. It's got a magnet on the back so it sticks in place on the jig. Put that in. Get that nice and squared. Give it just a little bit of tension here. Not too much. Just enough to hold it in place. Like that. Make sure the neck's square, solid. And let's move the camera over here a little bit. Like this. Alright, all I'm doing here is I'm using the 2 E strings. And again, I have multiple videos on this technique. I know what the relationship is between full tension and just the E's. I've measured this many times, and I know what I'm looking for here. This is a really super handy technique for getting you really close, very accurately on a neck reset. Use my little power tool here. I like the power tool because the guitar stays steady as I use this. And you just put about that much tension on it, not full tension or anything. I'll show you what I'm looking for here. Make sure that's on. It's about all the tension I need. I'm going to make sure that neck is sitting on there pretty square, flat, which it is. What I'm looking for here, a couple things. First, I want to make sure that the E's are lined up on the side of the fingerboard. And of course, this GoPro has a pretty wide angle lens, so it's going to distort a little bit. And it might look off to you, but I can tell that it's on. And it should be, because I haven't messed with the heel. I haven't messed with anything yet. This is actually the neck as it came off of the guitar. But I want these two E's looking really nice down there. The 12th fret measurement right now should be about 66 thousandths of an inch. That way, when it's strung up the pitch and everything, you know, starts folding up, the low E will be about 90 thousandths, 93 thousandths of an inch. I'm going to shoot for a lower action on this, about 90 thousandths of an inch, because over time, this is going to belly up some more, and the neck's going to come up and some things like that. So I'm going to go for a pretty low action on this. So I'm going to run my feeler gauges out here, 60 thousandths of an inch. And we got just about, you know, that much tension on it. And we're going to measure here. And you hear that? It's more than 60. So now I need to find out how much more than 60. This is very consistent with the action that I remember before I took all this apart. So here's 68 thousandths. It's still too much. So like I said, it's a mild neck reset. Let's try 76. '76 just taps. I'm going to knock off the 16 and I'm going to take it down to a 12. You know, I like the 76. So, all right, let me get my board and we're going to show you the calculations on this. Here's my spec sheet. And we're going to get a new sheet for this. And I have the sheet for this guitar somewhere. It's going to show up in a minute. But what we have, well, I'm sure not going to lean on this guitar. Let's come over here. So the neck reset, I'm going to write down D-45. 42A. Neck reset. I'm taking a lot better notes on this than I normally do because this is a, you know, pretty rare guitar. This is almost like working on one of the originals. Not quite. Not quite. But. So 76 thousandths of an inch at rest. And I would like for that to be about 66 thousandths of an inch. So as you can see, that's a difference of 10 thousandths of an inch at the action. So 10 thousandths of an inch at the action equals 20 thousandths at the heel. And it happens to be a 1:3 ratio here. So in order to lower 20 thousandths at the saddle, is going to require 1/3 of that. 8 times 3, 6, 12, 6 thousandths of an inch. About 6 thousandths of an inch at the heel. And I think I said earlier, I was thinking about 10 thousandths of an inch. And so, again, that's consistent with what I was talking about. That is not much of a neck reset, but it needs to be there in order for this guitar to be perfect, or we're going to be lowering the saddle, and then sooner or later it's still going to need neck reset. It might have been a rash decision to take the neck off. Maybe I was a little too cocky because I have set necks before to get the action exactly right with some sort of exotic saddle. Maybe it had an elephant ivory saddle or something, you know, and I wanted to preserve that saddle. So I might have been a little bit rash. I might have just lowered the saddle. It's got to go down 20 thousandths of an inch though, so watch this. Okay, here's my calipers. And let's see how much saddle height we have right here. This saddle is curved a little bit too much. It's a vintage saddle, so it's got less showing on the treble than the base. I could lower that base side some. So let's see how much saddle we have here. We've got 155. So if I drop it 20 thousandths of an inch, it's going to be 135. And 135 would be acceptable. I'm sure I'm going to end up adjusting this a little bit anyways. Because we've got 130 over here on this side. So we would end up with a pretty even saddle. I'm probably going to end up doing that. We should measure the treble side too, just to see what it's going to be. I don't have the same sort of spec on the treble side. But let's see what it is. Yeah. 42 on the treble side. Okay, so we can figure this out if we want to. For instance, looking at my specs here, I know that 66 thousandths is going to translate pretty well into 90 thousandths of an inch. So 90 thousandths minus 66. And I can do that in my head, but I want my calculator just to be sure. Because you do not want to make a mistake. I don't want to make any more mistakes on this. So let's just double check it here. So 90 minus 66 is a difference of 24 thousandths. So the action is going to rise about 24 thousandths of an inch when it gets strung up. So if we add that 24 to the 60 thousandths, no, it wasn't 60, it was 42. So if we add 24 plus 42, we're going to end up with 66 thousandths of an inch on the treble side, which is pretty low. You know what I'm going to do here? I admit I probably got a little too eager in wanting to take the neck off and get this right. But given those disparities between that saddle height, 150 and 130, that's 20 thousandths of an inch difference right there. I think what I'm going to do is not take any material off of the heel right now. But, you know, at the same time, though, I kind of wish the saddle was higher. I wish it was a little bit higher on the treble side so we would have a little bit more bite. Because as you can see, this is true of all Martin guitars, is that the high E is further back from here. And so having a low saddle at this point, being further back, creates a low break angle here compared to over here, where we have a taller saddle and it's closer to up there. So it creates two different break angles, and I really like to try to get those break angles consistent if I can. So I might be smart to go ahead and lower this side and end up with a consistent and even saddle, which will give me more even break angles. And so I'm thinking about all this, okay? You're getting my thought process here. So what I'm thinking of doing is not taking any material off of the heel right now, but go ahead and string it up, fully string it up with no glue in the heel. And a good fitting dovetail is going to hold. It's not, you know, it's going to be okay. So I could string it up under full tension and just put it in the case for about a week and see what that action ends up being before I take any material off the heel. Because if I take the material off the heel and overset it so that the treble is even lower, then I'm going to end up replacing the saddle anyways, which is what I was trying to avoid in the first place. Now that saddle is a pretty soft ivory because this guitar is pretty new, And you can see the dents and the string dents in the saddle. So that's not a very hard ivory. It's probably a mammoth ivory. It's pretty soft. And if I did have to replace it, I would replace it with bone, which would be a lot harder. Or, you know, I might scrounge up something fun, like bison bone or something like that, you know, that would be really hard. Yeah, I really think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to just hold off on the neck reset for right now. I'm going to put it back together, and I'm going to string it up, and I'm going to remeasure that action when it's under full tension. I suspect it's going to move because it hasn't been strung up in a year and 3 months. And I suspect this top is going to come up a little bit. Things are going to change, and I suspect that action is going to go back up higher than it is now. And so I don't want to overset the neck, and I don't want to go through all of this work and underset the neck. I want it to be right. And there's no hurry on this right now. So smart money says you should wait. And maybe even put like a paper shim in there just to hold it really tight, because the paper shim will come apart very easy, but it'll hold it pretty snug. I'm going to check the fit when I take the strings off. In fact, we can just do that right now and show you what I'm talking about. And again, this is complicated. It's not complicated. This is a mission critical neck reset. This is not my normal neck reset. I would normally have no problem with gluing the neck back on and then taking it back off again if I needed to, you know. I had no problem with doing 2 or 3 times to get that neck where I really, really wanted it. But because of this D-45 celluloid binding and all that stuff, I don't want to do that. I want to get it right the first time. So we're going through a complicated thought process here. I'm just not just rushing into it, because I did rush into it the first time. And that wasn't. So let's take the strings off and let's see how good of a fit we actually have right now. I'm also going to, if I end up doing that, I'm also going to take my tape off. I don't want to leave that tape on there for 2 weeks. I don't want it to eat into the finish. I don't want it to do anything weird. So I'm going to loosen this up. What I do here is hold the guitar down here. I believe we can see this. I'm going to pull the neck forward. So I'm going to make sure it's seated. Put my hand right here. Let's move the camera up a little bit for you. GoPro. Alright, I'm going to hold it here, and I'm going to pull forward with this hand. And that's going to tell me whether or not I have a gap at the heel. Is it sitting there tight or not? Oh yeah, see, that's really loose. So I can definitely put some shims in here. I'll try to get this on the camera for you. Show you what I'm talking about here. Loosen that up. So as we pull forward on the neck, you can see that gap right here. Now this neck is loose, and it's not going to stay on without some sort of shim, which is fine. I'll put a shim on it. It's not going to hurt my feelings at all to take that shim off again later on. So I'm just going to glue a shim in there really, really light, make that neck fit tight, and then we're going to string it up for a week. And that's not going to hurt a thing. And you can see how easy this neck is coming off. It's not popping. It's not doing nothing. It should fit in there really solid. So I feel really comfortable about that. So I'm going to get this body out of the way. And again, this is sort of an advanced technique here. I remember talking to Jim Baggett, who is the owner of Massachusetts Street Music, Mass Street Music. And, you know, he has quite a little collection of pre-war Martins. And years ago, we were talking about neck resets, and I said, you know, how much you charge? $1,000 for a neck reset. I said, $1,000? Man, at that time, I was getting like $250 or something. And he said, yeah, I'm not going to work on a pre-war Martin that takes basically a year out of my life and causes a year's worth of stress on me for anything less than $1,000. And you know, I thought about that, and now I understand much. Well, yeah, I've done pre-war Martins before, neck resets, and I guarantee you I've had some issues with them, which maybe I'll describe as something. I have another video coming that I want to do where I talk about like the 5 worst guitars I've ever worked on. 2 of those are pre-war, pre-war Martins, and they took a year off of my life. I didn't charge nearly enough money. So I understand what he's talking about, and I understand that the approach that I'm using here. I'm going to move cautiously on this. The owner is not in any kind of hurry to have this guitar back, and we want it to be right. So this is, like I said, a much more advanced process than my usual neck reset. So I'm going to put some shims on this, and we're going to fit them to the body, and then I'm going to string it up, and I'm going to put it in the case for about a week. And we're going to see what this action does, because I don't trust it yet, and that's the thing. So now when I do my shims, again, I have lots of videos on this. I've covered this before. Let me get them here. This is super, super thin. I thought it was mahogany, but it's something else. It's Spanish cedar, I think it is. And they use this in tobacco boxes to produce a good smell or something. And I have a friend that owns a cigar shop, and he gave me a box of these things. You can get them on Amazon too, but he gave me a box, and they are perfect shim material because they're really thin, about 30 thousandths of an inch, 20 thousandths of an inch, 20 thousandths of an inch in this case. And they vary a little bit, you know. This is 25 thousandths of an inch, and you can feel it, you know, how thick it is. Anyway, I cut these off, and I glue them on here. And they were great shim material. So I'm going to trim one up now, and we're going to stick it on this neck, and I'll show it to you when I get done with the process. And then this is what I used to fit it. It's an angled stick like this. Got sandpaper. I need to replace the sandpaper over there, but I just flip it around to use this side. And you can hold it like this, and it fits down into the dovetail like this. Like that. And it's really super good for sanding down shims. It keeps it nice and flat. And so I'm going to put some shims on this, and we're going to put this neck on this body, and I'm going to string it up. See what we get, okay? So we'll check back in a minute. Here's our neck, and I ended up putting just one shim right here. Super thin shim, hardly any glue at all on it. Sanded it down, and this is what it should fit like. It's going to go on here, and then it's about a smidgen free right there, and the neck will come off easy right now. So it's got to get pressed into there, and I use just one of these and put it here. Clamp it, and I can watch this gap go down right here at the neck and the body joints. Right there. Watch that gap go down. And so I know I pressed the neck into the dovetail. And this is what it should be like when I take it off. So I'm going to let go of the clamp. And the neck is on there. Not moving around. So I can shake the guitar a little bit, it doesn't come off. I put my thumb on the back of the heel here and push. Pop, see? So that's a nice snug fit. That's what you need to have when you put it on there. Don't ever rely on the glue to hold the neck on there. That's how we can get away with doing this without any glue. So I'm going to clamp it back in there again. Set this aside. Set this down. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put a clamp here to hold it while I'm messing with this, because I don't want to jolt the neck and have it come off. As soon as it gets a little tension in it, it's going to be fine. So let me grab a piece of wood. Another block of wood I'm going to put in here. And we're just going to put a little bit of tension on this while I string it up. Like I said, if I happen to jolt the neck or something right now, it could fall off. And once you get string tension on it, it's going to be fine. So there we go. Now the neck's not going to fall off now. And I'm going to go ahead and string it up. Found all my pins. These are not the stock pins. These are just pins. These are test fit pins. I could also do this in my jig, but the reason I'm doing it outside of the jig is because I want the whole guitar to flex. The jig, in other words, will compress the back. It'll hold the back and keep the back from moving. And I had one case years ago where I had a guitar. I put the jig and everything looked great. I did the neck reset on it, strung it up, and after about a week or two, it was off again. I thought, huh. So I studied it, and I found out that the back was loose. There was a little loose section on the back. So the jig was holding it together, and then when it was out, the back would actually slip a little bit, which, you know, I needed to fix. But that's why I thought, well, you know, something like that, you need to string it up outside of the jig. If you're going to do a technique like this where I'm going to leave it for a little while. Plus, I need to get it in the humidified case rather than sitting out here in the open. Now, these strings are going to hold it. They're going to put tension on the dovetail, trying to bring that dovetail up. And the neck's not going to fall off now. Probably not going to string it full to pitch. I'll probably string it about a half a step low. I need light gauge strings on this guitar, and I don't have any light gauge strings. All I have is mediums right now. So I'm going to compromise by stringing it maybe half a step low in order to mimic light gauge strings. All right, so that's the process. Let me string it up, and I'll come back to you. All right, we got some strings on it. We're bringing it more or less up to pitch. One thing I want to do is got some tension on it. Before I put any more, I want to look at the heel and see what the heel's doing here. So I'm looking at the heel right here, and boy, it's nice. It's not budging. So that neck's on there pretty tight. Got a lot of dust on here. Brazilian rosewood, boys and girls. Man, this is... So that heel's on there really snug. It's not budging. If I decide this is the way I like it, I mean, I could glue it in right now. So we're not wasting any time here, really. This also illustrates the fact that a good dovetail fit is independent of the glue. So I'm going to put some tension on this, and I can sit here and play this guitar. You need the glue under the fingerboard here because this does add a lot of strength. Keeps the, you know, gluing that extension down helps support that dovetail quite a bit. That's why it's such a bad thing to cut these fingerboards at the 14th fret. If you're going to cut them up at the 15th fret. And I have never had to cut, I had to cut one or two maybe, but don't do that, please. A good fit is independent of the glue, and we're going to demonstrate that here. So let's see. Let me get my tension here. Tuner, please. My strobe's not working. Why isn't my strobe working? There we go. So this should be a D, so a full step low, a C. And this should be a G. A D. It's already there. Another D. An A. take a look at the heel, make sure it's behaving. Well, it looks great. I don't even see a bit of light coming under that heel. It's staying tight up here. When you don't glue the extension, the action will come up a little bit because the neck does slip forward just very, very slightly. And it's just been my experience, and also Mario Prue, who pointed it out to me, that when you glue the extension down, the action is always going to go down a little bit. So, but it'll get us close. I'll also know, sitting in the case, how much the pitch will change. And if it stays pretty steady, then I know that neck's under tight. There we go. Tuned up a step low. And let's see what the action is, because the action should be pretty close to about 90 thousandths of an inch. If all the specs are working right. And sometimes they do, and most of the time they do. Sometimes they don't. So let's take a 90 thousandths of an inch and handle this very carefully so we don't bump it. And I can already say it's high. So, yeah, that looks about. I'm really reluctant to set that on my shoulder. I guess it's got enough tension from this. I'm going to do this very carefully. See, that's way high. So I'm glad I did it this way. I have a more accurate measurement now for the neck reset. Let's put about a 98 in there. And so I just strung it up. It's gonna go up more as it sits and the top rises. It has not been strung up for a year and 3 months, so things are going to change here. And it will go down a little bit, but I don't know how much yet exactly. But that's higher than I want it. So here is 100 thousandths of an inch, and that's about what it is. It's 100 thousandths of an inch. So we'll see what it does over time, but I'm feeling pretty comfortable about taking a little bit off the heel. I'm going to run a 76 under the treble, and let's see what we get there. If it ends up 76, that'll be really nice for the treble. But I know it's going to be higher. Oh yeah, that's way high. That could even be 90 over there, which is good. That's what I want to see. I want a little bit of room. I don't want it too low at this point, for sure. So here's 90 thousandths of an inch. And we got some slack in there. I'm going to say 92 thousandths of an inch. So we had 192. I'm going to write that down on my spec sheet here. So I'm going to call this immediate string up, test string up. I'm going to put 100 on the E and about 92 on the little e. And I'm not scared by the discrepancy. That's 8 thousandths of an inch. That's all right, I'm not worried about that. Because the bass will generally come up more because of the way the bracing is and that kind of thing. So there we have a test fit on the guitar where I'm doing a very critical neck reset. And I don't want to glue it yet. And I want to see what this guitar is going to do before I go gluing anything. So I got that dovetail fit. Not glued, nothing, no glue in there at all. It's a nice tight fit, is the way it should be. If I needed to glue this, if this was perfect, I could glue that right now, and I would be 100% comfortable that nothing is creeping, nothing's going on in there. But I don't trust it yet. It's already a little bit high. I'd like to have that at 90 thousandths and 80 without touching the saddle. So I'm pretty sure we're going to end up taking some off the heel, but I want to know how much. I want a better accurate estimate of how much. being that this guitar is sat for so long. So, let me grab a pick and let's see how it sounds. Now, it's tuned to step low, and you're using the GoPro camera here with the microphones. It's not going to sound really great, but I want to see. I've been dying to play this guitar for so long. I just got a very quick look at it back before I got into all this stuff. So it's kind of fun playing it tuned down a step, you know. A friend of mine and I, he's a subscriber, we were talking about this, and he said that he likes the lower pitch. He tuned down, and he said, man, the strings just ring so much longer because they're not under tension, so they keep going, and you end up with sustain. And I said, you know, I wonder if that's why I like A432 instead of A440, because it's richer. It's a little richer sound, and maybe I like that longer feel. It's richer. I don't always like the richer sound. Sometimes I want a tight, punchy sound, but there are times when I go, oh, that sounds good, especially on the mandolin. I like to tune the mandolins down to A432, and they just sound so full. They sound different. And this is so low, I don't trust myself to be in tune on this thing, you know, the pitch is so far off. It's a baritone guitar right now. Oh, there we go. It's a little bit better in tune. I got dust on my fingers. That's a little too low for me, you know. It's like, where's the G run? You know, dun 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 dun, ball. It's not. I mean, it's reasonably playable at this action, but this guitar would be so nice if it had a really buttery action. And I know it's going to come up as the neck settles in and the top and all that. So, you know, it's fairly playable now, but it's not great. Yeah, the middle is really high. I definitely feel that. I'm having to work way too hard for that. It's got a terrific neck on it. Oh gosh, I wish this neck was on my 41 Authentic. This has just got such a great taper on it. This is probably my favorite Authentic neck right here, which is a shame because you're never going to get one. But it's just sweet. It's got a nice V2. I'm going to measure it before I put it up, but I can tell you that the taper from here is very, very smooth, very even. Got a nice soft V to it. The edges are rounded. I love white binding. You know what it feels like? You could get real close to this in a D-28 Clarence White. And I have raved about the necks on those guitars. The Clarence White has got a very, very similar neck to this. Yeah, I like this neck so much better than the 36 just because it's comfortable. 36 has got this massive neck. Biggest Martin neck I've ever measured. So that's why I was really looking forward to playing this guitar, because, you know, it's Brazilian. I mean, it's a, you know, this is it, dudes. You know, this is a 42 D-45 replica, and it's got all the good stuff on it. And I was so disappointed when I blew that neck up, because I was looking forward to playing it for as long as I could get away with. And this one's used, so it's got, you know, it's got a few scratches. It's got a few signs of use. Not much, but it's got a few signs of the top is wanting to split right here, and I keep it humidified, and pretty quick I'm going to get some hot hide glue, and I'm going to let it open up just a little bit, I'm going to get that hide glue in there and humidify it, and then I can heat it again with a little bit of moisture, and that'll re-amalgamate the glue and glue it together inside the crack. And it's not open yet, it's not cracking, but it's wanting to. And when we first got it being used, it was dry, and that was the first thing I saw when I opened the case. I looked at it and go, oh man. But again, you know, this is a thin top. It's 90 thousandths of an inch, which is the thinnest top I've measured, and that's a feature of it. So, you know, it's not a road guitar, you know. Anyway, so this one doesn't scare me as much as the 36. This is a guitar I would probably get out and play fairly frequently, because I love the neck, and it's got, you know, like a few scratches on everything. I don't know, this guitar just bonds with me a lot better than the 36 does, and so I was just so disappointed when I blew that neck up, because first of all, I blew the neck up, but second of all, because I was really looking forward to playing the guitar. So I'm looking forward to getting it back together. I'm going to go put it in the case right now, and we're going to leave it for, I'm going to check it every day and make sure there's nothing hinky going on there. I'm going to take a look at this right now, and I expect the shim to contract and squish a little bit. So I fully expect, first of all, that I'm going to be taking a little bit off the heel, but when I go to really do the final fitting, I'm going to put the shim on the other side, and we will get the fit. But I'm going to hold it up to the light right here, and I'm going to look, and it's on there. It's on there tight. So I'm very comfortable about that, but I'm going to check it every day just to make sure nothing hinky's going on. So, whew, that's a sponge. All right. Well, anyway, that's the process. We're not done with this guitar, but I'm walking you through a very sensitive, mission-critical neck reset here. Not your average neck reset. This is the one that takes the year off your life to get it right. And I want this guitar to be right because I like this guitar, and I want it to be perfect. Good luck. So, all right, we'll be back in a week. This is day 2. This guitar, D-45, has been sitting for overnight, and let's take a look at it and see what the action's doing. So yesterday I had it down for 100 low E. And again, like I said, the shims are probably compressing a little bit, so the heel is going to pull out just a tiny bit. But if I pick it up and hold it up to the really good backlight up here, I always like backlights, you know. Yeah, I can see a little tiny bit of a gap up in there. So the heel is not quite as snug as it would be when I glue it. It has shifted a little bit, which is fun, really, because that means I'm going to get better shims in there when I do come in here. So let's see what we got. So I would expect the action to be up a little bit. 90, 102, so this is 102 right here. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's up to 102. It's quite a bit higher. So this is why I am doing this, because I want to see how much that's really going to come. This is going to let me get a good accurate neck reset. This is why I don't like to build guitars, and if I ever built a guitar, I'd be so tempted to put the neck on and just leave it alone for a month. Because, you know, you're building it, and a new would be even worse than this, you know. 102, I bet you that's getting close to 105. Oh, I added another 6 in there, didn't I? Oh, gosh. 115? I'm going to have to get my calipers and measure this one. I haven't used this one in so long. 115. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, I'm going to call it 115. So it went up 5 thousandths of an inch. And I would guess a lot of that's just from the heel slipping. So I'm going to write that number down. And we're going to do day 2. 105. And we should take a look at the little E too. It was 92 yesterday. Let's just start with about a 96. That'd be about right. 5/1000ths of an inch up on both sides. Just a hair more. But we'll go 96. So 5,000, yeah, rose 5/1000ths of an inch pretty evenly. We're looking good. I'm confident that this is the right thing to do on this guitar. So, a couple more days. You know what I might do, even like tomorrow? I might go ahead and take the neck off again since it's not glued, and go ahead and take the heel back, because the action's not going to go down. The action's only going to be going up from here. And I might start honing in on the action that I want. So I might sand the heel just a little bit, fit the shims again, and this is where I might use a paper shim, because I just want something thin to take up room, and I'm not gluing it. And I might go ahead and start dropping the neck down so that I can play this guitar. I mean, I like to play it while it's sitting here, and right now that action is too high for me to comfortably play. And I'll probably do that tomorrow. If I do, I'll film it. I'll show you what's going on. We'll take the neck down a little bit, because remember, I knew from the start that this was that I really thought this was going to be a neck reset. Yesterday, I was second guessing myself a little bit, but today I'm confident in my initial evaluation of this guitar a year and a half ago. My initial evaluation was it would just benefit from a really slight neck reset. Yesterday, I started second guessing myself because the ruler said no, a couple of other things said maybe. But now that we've had it strung up, I'm confident in my initial evaluation. So I think we should. So I have not touched the neck since it was stock. All I've done is take it off and put it back on. I have not taken anything off the heel at all. So I think tomorrow I'm probably going to do that. I'm probably going to come in and start taking off a little bit off the heel, and go ahead and maybe drop the action down to about, maybe 96/1000ths. Yeah, about 10/1000ths of an inch, because 96 is playable. And remember, my experience is that when you glue the extension, it's always going to go down a little bit more. And again, over the next week or so, I can hone in on that, and I can observe it and see what it's going to do. But if I was to drop this down to 96 right now, then that would be a start towards getting the right action. I might even go 93 and just call it good, because I know it's going to rise over the next 5 years, you know? So if you started with a nice slow action of 90/1000ths of an inch even, this guitar would just play like butter. And then over the next 5, 10 years, whatever it takes, then your action would still be good, your saddle would be good. I'm shooting for the future, I'm not shooting for right now. So that's kind of my strategy on that, is I'm probably going to want to end up with about 90/1000ths of an inch when I'm done, which is a hair below the 3/32, and about 75 on here. And then I'm anticipating that in the future that's going to come up a little bit more, because this is still a pretty young guitar. And it's going to be changing some. Well, here we are, day 3 of the D-45 neck reset. And today I'm going to go ahead and do what I talked about the other day, yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and start angling the neck back. So first thing we want to do today is take a look. Make sure that heel is not slipping. It's about like it was yesterday. I can see just a tiny, tiny bit of air through there. We need to take that into account. And I'm going to show you the way I'm going to approach this. So yesterday, we were 105. I thought we were higher than that. Yeah, we had one there. We had 103. We had 105. We're higher than that. Still going up. Let's see what we got. Okay. I think that's 126. 115. 115. I think that's what it should have been yesterday. I think I made a mistake when I wrote this down because I remember looking at these numbers again. So, day 3. 115E. And I know I would have got the 96 right yesterday, so let's check it. We started at 100, don't forget. We started at 100. And if we were 105 yesterday, it'd be okay. But we're up to 115 today. So that's 15 thousandths of an inch change. And if I had just stuck the neck on, we would probably be taking it off again. So here's 96. And this is what the high E was yesterday. It's a little bit higher. I'm getting a little bit more clearance than that today. Let's see. I don't think I can get a 12 in there. Let's try a 10. So 100. That would be up 4 thousandths of an inch. Which, yeah. Yeah. Just makes it. So 100 thousandths of an inch. One thing I'm going to comment on real quick about is when you're using a stack of feeler gauges, be sure you put your index finger down and squish them together. So I don't know if you can tell this or not, but when I put it down on the fret, I use my index finger and put some pressure and squish these gauges together so that you don't have the air gap in there like that. If you just do that, you're not going to get it. You got to push them down, and then you'll be all right. So 100 on the high E. It's still going up a little bit. 100. Okay. All right, here's what we need to do. We need to make sure that that little bit of heel slippage is not throwing us off. So in other words, I don't want to go too far on that neck angle. What I want to do then, I'm going to loosen these strings, and I'm going to check the low E relaxed. Then I'm going to put it in the jig, put a little bit of pressure on it, and I'm going to check it again, because the jig is going to push the heel in like that. And if I see a big difference between this and the jig, then I'm going to take that into account. Okay, so I'll show you. I know some of this stuff is complicated, and you're going, why don't you just put the neck on? And because I don't want to take this neck off again, and I want it perfect. Well, I haven't got anything else to do. I'm not working on a deadline here, so I want it perfect. I only get one shot at it. It's like doing a moon landing, you know? Although I guess they can adjust variables on the way, but you know, I can too. So I also want to see how good, I'm going to check the fit of the neck here when I get these pins out and everything. And I know this is a long video with a lot of talking, but this is pretty valuable information to me. I wish I had known a lot of this stuff. As far as, again, doing a precision, complicated, mission-critical neck reset. That's still not the word I want. I want to say it's complicated, but it's really not complicated. It's just you got to be real picky about it. You got one shot at it, and there are some complications, such as it being a D-45 1942 authentic, which makes it a little bit. You really want to kind of handle this guitar as little as possible when it comes to shooting steam in it and putting heat on it, and especially after I blew up the neck. I don't want to do that again. So now I've got this. First, before I pick it up, I'm going to feel the neck, make sure it's still on there good. I don't want it popping off on me when I'm doing this. So I'm going to get 90 thousandths of an inch. That doesn't quite make it, which is good. That's good. 76 is a little bit big. Let's try 84. I like 84. So 84 at rest. on day 3 at rest. 84 thousandths. And I would like for it to be about 66, I think. So let's see here. The difference between 84, let's look at the action. I want that action to drop from 105 to 95. So that's, 115. So 115, 105, 95. No. 105, 95 is 20 thousandths of an inch, right? Yep. And if it's at rest, it's 84 thousandths, and I want it to be dropped 20, it's going to be 64 thousandths. So those two numbers agree, because in my experience, somewhere between 60 and 68 thousandths of an inch is good for this low E at rest. And 66 is a really good, measurement. Some guitars will go down to 60. I think 60 is just a hair overset. I used to use 60 thousandths of an inch when it was at rest, and I thought that I was oversetting just a little bit. So I went up to 68, and then I thought, I feel like I've underset just a hair, And I kind of settled on 66 as sort of the good number here. So if I'm looking at a 64 here, that's really close to 66. 20 thousandths of a drop on the relaxed, and 20 thousandths of a drop on the at tension. And furthermore, that's good. 20 thousandths of an inch drop. So those are consistent measurements. I want to throw it in the jig, though, and see if that 84 changes any. And if it does, that means my dovetail is just a little bit loose, and we're going to take that into consideration. So here's how my neck jig goes together. I've got the holes drilled in the table here, and this is marked A, and it has a line in here, so I know that goes in the center. And I pop that in there, and I have the B over here, and I pop that in there. Got felt on top of it. I get my clipboard out of the way. Also on this video, I'm showing you this stuff live. It's very minimal editing, and I know it's long and maybe possibly boring, but you do get to see my thought process and the whole work process here. How long it takes me, what my thought process is. So if you think the video is too long, that's just too bad. You can fast forward if you want to. I don't mind. But I recommend, if you're a luthier, if you're thinking about doing repair work, or you just want to know how it works, stick with me here, I feel like I'm giving you some pretty interesting, valuable information that you're not going to get anywhere else. Okay, we're going to put some tension on that. That looks good. And not a lot of tension, just enough to make sure that it is in fact snug. And let's see what we get now. I feel like I had 84, it's still set up. And it went down a little bit. We went down to 76 thousandths from 84. So now I'd be looking at probably a 10 thousandths of an inch, a little bit more than that. Probably about a 12 to 14 thousandths of an inch drop here. But the heel has slipped a little bit in order to change this by 6 thousandths of an inch. So I want to keep that in consideration. Where I'm going to consider it is when I'm looking at the action. That 115 that I measured, it might be really closer to 110 by the time I get the glue in there and a really tight fitting shim. So I'm not going to get over concerned about that 115, but it is not 93 thousandths of an inch where it needs to be. So we are going to take some off the heel today. I'm just double checking and triple checking my work here. That's all I'm doing. None of these are hard, fast, concrete numbers yet. They're just double checking. So let's take the E strings off. going to see how tight this neck still is. Because it's pretty snug when I put it on. Get my hand on it. Okay, here we go. See, that's okay. It could use a little bit more pressure. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this jig out of the way. And I'm going to rig it up for sanding. I'm going to need the jig again, but I want it out of the way when I'm working on this guitar. I want everything as clean as possible on this bench. We're going to do it on this one. Now, I've got some sanding strips. These are sandpaper strips. It's 150 grit, something like that. Here it is, 150. It's backed with strapping tape, because strapping tape, you can pull it pretty hard and it doesn't tear, and it's slick. And these are, this one's used, new. All right, put this back on, and it fits pretty tight because of the shims are in fact in there, so we're not worried about the final fitting yet anyways. Huh, interesting. Okay, so here we go. You just run the strips up under here like this. Make sure we can get this. Run the strips up under it like that. And again, I have videos on this. But we're just going to kind of go through it here in case you've never seen this before. And I think you can see pretty good here. I'm not worried about you seeing good. I'm worried about this guitar right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm putting pressure this way on the neck. I'm taking the neck and I'm putting pressure backwards on it here. Okay? Putting pressure on the neck this way to put it on the heel. And we're only going to give it every neck goes at a different speed. Depends on how hard the wood is and how much it's undercut. It just depends on a lot of factors. So check your fit. Don't just start sanding willy-nilly and overdo it. That's good, and I'm going to take it, and then what I do is just sand right down the heel right here, and I don't mind if the heel cap itself is just a little bit away from touching it. That means you're not putting pressure on the heel cap, which is celluloid. I bet it's celluloid if the binding is. So I like to get a nice clean strip here and just fit the heel at the very end like this. And this smooths out any ridges or anything. Normally I like the other bench because it's lower, but it's just hard to film off of that bench. So that's why this is awkward looking. Blow that out, see what that looks like. Could be a little bit better on the final fit, but we're not at the final fit yet. So take these off. See how very little tack, and then the whole tape just comes off like that. So that's a really good way to do it, except that double thickness of tape does not give you a good fit. Now what you can do, or what you will do, is you will go ahead and you take this and you kind of rub your finger on it, make sure there's nothing sharp. And then you can go ahead and do it on the finish if you're careful. You're going to use a very gentle stroke on this, and you'll be all right. You won't scratch the finish. It's not that fragile. If it was that fragile, you might as well never play the guitar, you know. So you're gonna slide this in here, and you're gonna do a couple strokes here, really easy. Not much pressure on here. And this is what gives it the final fit. You got to get away from the tape for your final fit. There's just no way about it. There's no two ways about it. The only thing here is you want to be careful on your tape. You don't pull down too hard or you really scratch up the end here, but you don't want to lift it up. So you don't want to do this and you don't want to do this. You just want to kind of pull it straight out. And I'm using a little bit of short stroke, as you can see. Get your finger on here, pull straight out, as best as you can, you know. Perfection is impossible, but yeah, it looks a lot better now. It's got one little burr right here. What I'm going to do for that little burr is just go like this and take my fingernail and wipe it off of there. Okay? And see, it's loose because I've taken off the heel, and you can see this moving now. You can see that gap. So we know we've changed it. So, given that we've changed it, we need to find out what the jig tells us. Where are we? This jig is the only thing that I really trust. I don't trust straight edges. Straight edges is just a guide. Jig is the only thing I trust at this stage of the game. I've done, like I said, over 600 neck resets. And I did this jig from the very, very beginning, very early in the game. And I've been using it for the vast majority of those 600 neck resets for at least, at least 590 of them. We use a clamp, make sure I get that in there solid. Alright, I like it. It's pretty solid. Let's see what we got. I really only need the low E string on here, but pin tension on both keeps them symmetrical as it comes in. In other words, if you only put the low E on, the neck will tend to pull this way. And it can give you a bad reading. Okay? So, not much tension. We would like to see somewhere around 60 plus. Huh, 60. That little sanding dropped it to where we need it. That's where we need it. I'm not worried about it being 60 right now because, like I said, as soon as you get some tension on this, the whole thing is going to change. With this ebony truss rod, I am almost positive this neck is going to move a little bit more than a steel one. So I'm not too worried about that. So it's 60 right now, and this might be our last fit, you know. Let's double check it again. Yeah. This might very well be our last fit. And if it is, I'm happy, you know. But look at how little it took. Remember, once again, that was the first time that I have laid sandpaper on this neck. When we put it together before, we have not used sandpaper. We were just testing it. That's all that it took to get the neck where I wanted it. 5 stripes, 6. It was not much. It wasn't. So that's when I said it did not need much of a neck reset, but it just needed it to be perfect, you know. You want a D-45 1942 authentic to be perfect. And so that's what it took. Now, people might be saying, oh, well, when you pay this much money for a guitar, it ought to be perfect from the factory. Yeah, but you know, it comes from the factory and it's a brand new spanking guitar. And this is a 2011. So I was wrong earlier when I said it was still a new guitar. What I mean is it's not 60 years old. It's a 2011. So it's just now kind of really getting some, you know, tension on it. And for you to get a brand new guitar perfect, man, I would not want to be in that position. That's why I don't build, because it's just too much. I would rather work with older guitars like this, older guitars, you know. Alrighty, we're gonna make us a shim now, and the first thing I'm gonna do. Remember, I'm not gluing this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of tape. And how thick is this piece of tape? It's pretty thin. 3/1000 of an inch, 3/1000 of an inch. And I'm going to put this piece of tape, I've got a shim over here on this side. And I'm going to put the piece of tape on the other side. And it should be torn in half because it's a little too thick. And we're going to make us a tape shim. Probably needs to be a little shorter than this. About like that. We're going to set that on there. Let's get it right. It's a tape shim, but it should be even. So I just made a tape shim. And we're going to leave this one alone. And let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. Where's my clamp? Tiny gap in there still. But it didn't. The tape's not going to compress. A piece of wood compresses a little bit when you squish it. Tape's not going to compress. And it looks like it's just a little bit too much gap. Let me get my feeler gauge. I'm checking here because I want to make sure the neck is at least pretty squished in there. And you can't just look at it because the binding is sometimes just a little bit narrower than the wood on the fingerboard. Okay, here's my 03. And I'm going to take it like this and just see if I can slide it under there. And I can't. I can just barely do it. Barely. So let's see how that feels if I take it apart. Is it tight? No, not tight at all. The tape is too slick. The tape is not as nice as a piece of wood would be. Alright, here's where we're at. I ended up putting an actual paper shim over here with just a tiny bit of glue to hold it. then it still wasn't quite going on there. So what I did, there's another little trick you can use. I took my razor scraper and I scraped the inside of this just a little bit, because I just need just the tiniest bit of wood off of there, and scraper will also make it slick so it slides in there easier. So I just hold my scraper like this. Let me get the camera down. There you go. Take the scraper, hold your finger on it, come up against the side, and you just slide it like that. Scrape it just a little. And that's all the wood I'm taking off. I mean, we're talking dust. But look how smooth it made this. Right there. Which side is it? This one. There it is. It made that really smooth. And over here is the remnants of the original shim, which I left in there. So, alright, let's see how it fits now. This just takes hours and hours and hours to get right. There we go. Looks like it's squeezed in a little bit. It's about as good as it's going to get, I think. When I put glue in it, the glue is going to act as a little bit of a lubricant. And yeah, that definitely is better. Yeah, that's tight. That's snug now. Okay, I feel comfortable about gluing that. Or not gluing it, stringing it up. And like we did yesterday, I'm going to get this block. And I'm going to put it in here to hold it while I'm putting some string on it. Just because it takes two hands to do the strings. And I don't really want this neck popping off on me. So, I'm going to put this block on here. And the neck's not going to fall off now while I string it up. We'll string it up. Be back. I have the two strings on here. It's outside of the jig. So again, let's take a look at this and see what this is. And I held it up to the light like that, and the heel was absolutely solid. There's not a bit of air showing through there. So let's see what this says now, because we know what it was in the jig. It's just a little shot, you know, it's just a little more than 60, 62, which is good, you know. I'm happy with that. I like it when my measurements stay the same. And I don't like it when they go sliding all over the place, because you know that something is moving then. It's a shame I couldn't use paper shim in there right now, because it fits, you know. But it's a bad idea for several reasons. Number one, paper shears. And Martin uses paper shims. First time I saw a paper shim was on a Marty Stewart signature model. And the heel was loose. And when I took it off through the neck reset, I mean, this is like an HD40 or something. You know, it's a fairly fancy signature model guitar. And I took that neck off, and there's paper shims in there. And that was the first time I had seen them. And that guy was horrified. That must have been 2000s or 2002 or something. And since then, I've seen paper shims and lots of them. And they're nearly always loose. I don't know if Martin still uses them. They may have stopped using them. But for a while there, I would come across a guitar and it would have that heel gap, and I would just say, it's got a paper shim in it. And I would be right when I got the neck off. take a look at it. Oh man, that heel's on there tight. There's not even a hint of air gap on there. So I actually may have a better fit than I did yesterday. Let's get it up to pitch now. Again, I just was checking there to make sure there was no slippage going on before I went to the next step. So this should be a C. Okay, we're up to one step low. Let's see how we're doing. Looks good so far. Heel's nice and snug, so I feel like I'm going to get an accurate measurement this time, you know. And let's take a 90 thousandths of an inch. Let's hope. See, it's a little bit up still, which is fine. When I set it at 60, I said, man, I hope I don't overset it, you know. But we're actually a little bit above 90 right now. And that's okay, because when I glue the extension down, it's going to go down a little bit. It always goes down a little bit when you glue the extension. So let's get let's get an accurate measurement. Let's take a 98. I feel like 98 is just a little too tight, and I feel like 96 is going to be a little bit better. No, 98. 98 thousandths of an inch. So we started with 115 and we're down to 98. So I did not go too far on the initial neck reset. We started at 100 on the little E. Let's see what 90 looks like right now. $90 is too much, which is nice. Let's try 84. That'd be nice. 84 would be good. Yeah, 84. Just a smidge. So we've got 98 and 84. So, I mean, we're getting into the playability range now. Now it's like, okay, almost there. I would take just a couple more swipes off that neck before I actually set it. But it's good enough now to let it sit for another couple of days, and I can play it now. And here's what I figured out. I don't know why I didn't think of this the other day when I was messing with this. But it's tuned a whole step low, and I thought, man, that sounds bassy. Just put a capo on, you dummy. Gee. Sometimes it's so obvious you don't even think about it, you know. Just put a capo on, now I'm in standard pitch, so we can see. It's going to sound good. It's got a thin top, remember? And I can feel that in the boominess of it. You can feel the percussion. You can feel that. Dust. it definitely has a percussive sound to it. As I'm playing, I hear the percussion coming off of every pick note. This. I hear that percussiveness. And that's coming from the thin top. Gosh, what a neck. Man, this has got a great neck on it. Why this is just, man. If my 41A had this neck, we would be so done. Well, if I just had this guitar. Oh, it's terrific neck. What I'm grinning at is that, gosh, it's a boominess, but it's a percussive thing in there. It's not particularly bright. It's not, of course the neck's not glued on yet either. But it's not a particularly bright sounding guitar, but it's really got that. Oh, it's got a low end that's ferocious. I'm sure once I glue the neck on, it's going to make a little bit, you know. We can A-B it, you know. Get a little bit out of tune, but that's okay. Well, that's why I'm doing this test fix. I get to play the guitar. Oh, it definitely plays better now, though. It would definitely be getting into the... this is the most playable this guitar has ever been since I've had it. This is pretty good. You know, if it was like this, you probably could be pretty happy. I've got a capo on, so that's reducing the action. It's fun. It brings out different kinds of. I'm sure if you've followed any of my videos, you can immediately tell the guitar is bringing out different kinds of playing in me. It feels, with that boominess to it, it feels so Tony Rice-ish, you know. The antique has that powerful booming feel to it, while still having treble clarity and everything. This feels to me very much like a lot of the Santa Cruzes I've played, some of the really good Santa Cruzes. They have a very light top and they have that drum-like response to them. So I'm really looking forward to getting this thing all done and all up and playing so we can really give it a good test run. But it's a wonderful neck, and we're playing really good already. So I think the next video we're going to have is going to be actually the final setup on this thing, the final setup and the gluing in of the neck. I think I'm not in any rush. I'm going to let this sit, and when I'm happy with it, then we'll glue it on. All right, bye.